Hey, it's time for another brand in Australia. This is Jaecoo's J7. Jaecoo is part of the Chery group, and the J7 model here is a smaller SUV with some off-roady design elements and some premium design finishes on the inside. So let's see what it's like to drive, and I'll tell you some great alternatives to it as well. So if you haven't already, please do subscribe and ring the bell, and let's take a look at the Jaecoo J7. So let me set the scene for you. Chery is the big business. It sold about 2.5 million cars in 2024, so it's a serious deal in the world of cars. And it has plenty of sub-brands, including in some markets, a Moda and Tiggo, but they're all under the Chery brand in Australia. Jaecoo is also a sub-brand of Chery, so it uses lots of common components and parts and engines and so forth, but it has its own presence and its own design, and in Australia it's going to have its own dealerships as well. So Jaecoo is here as more of an off-roady inspired and premium offering compared to some of the Chery models in the lineup. And I have to say, at first glance, the J7 really does have its own presence and its own sort of vibe and personality compared to the Chery models. I think it looks great, but we'll get to some of the elements that you need to consider about this car shortly. Now, let's talk about the J7 range in particular. There are two models coming at the start of this model lineup. So there's going to be the entry-level version, which is called Core, and it's going to look very similar to this one here, which is the top spec version called Track. They both get common things as standard, like 18-inch alloy wheels with Cooper tires. There's LED lighting all around the car. You get those pop-out door handles with proximity unlocking and keyless entry. There's a big 10.25-inch digital instrument cluster, a 13.2-inch touchscreen media system with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and there's standard sat-nav and digital radio, and you're getting a fake leather interior trim. And if you want to spend a few $1,000s more to get into the high-grade version, this Track model, you're going to be getting things like heated front seats, and you'll also score a 360-degree surround view camera system, dual zone climate control, and front and rear parking sensors. The entry-level version gets a reversing camera and rear parking sensors, so this one obviously gets a few more convenience features for the cash. Things that are missing, well, you don't get any model in the current range with a panoramic glass roof, if that matters to you, but it does seem pretty well equipped. And at the time I'm filming this, Jaecoo hasn't confirmed the exact pricing for the model range, but you'll see a price guide on your screen now as to what these models might cost. What do you think about that? Let me know in the comments section below. Is that the sort of price that would entice you into something like this? Or would you consider one of these alternatives? Look, there are plenty of options out there when you're considering an SUV of this size and around this price, and some that I would recommend you go and take a look at. If you're interested in something that looks a bit more robust and rough and tumble, well, the SsangYong Torres could be one to check out. I've done a full detailed review of it. You'll find the link in the description. It's certainly stand out in terms of its design, and the price seems okay as well. Now, SsangYong has a good reputation in our market. It's got a pretty big dealer network, including some great regional representation as well, and a strong warranty too. So it could be a really good choice if you're thinking along these lines, but maybe you're not sure about going for a new brand. And hey, if you're thinking, well, I like the rough and tumble look, I want the rough and tumble hardware, go and have a look at the Suzuki Jimny XL. The 5-door model certainly doesn't have anywhere near as much safety technology and spec that this car has, and it's not as fast and not as refined and not as nice inside and not a lot of things. But what it is a rough road ready, off-road capable, very, very cool little car with enough space for 4 adults and a boot full of stuff, and you can take it more places than you can take most other smallish SUVs. And another model you might want to check out if you're looking for the off-roady lifestyle and you do want something that has all the tech and spec and still has a punchy turbo petrol engine and plenty of space, the GWM Tank 300 is a good choice in my opinion. It does have some safety systems which do get on your nerves a little bit, but honestly, it is so capable off-road. It's a proper 4x4 and it's still really sweet to drive on the road as well. In fact, if I was looking for a compact SUV that goes places, it would be the one I would choose over a Jimny. So would you consider the Jimny, one of those other alternatives I mentioned, or something completely different? Let me know what you're thinking in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. I've heard some people say that they think this Jaecoo J7 looks very Land Rover-ish, and I can see that in some ways, but it also has its own definite design in terms of how it looks compared to anything else out there. There's nothing else that really has this kind of finish at the front and this profile. Maybe this profile we've seen before, but it is in the sweet spot when it comes to the sizing at about 4.5 meters long. I'll put all the dimensions on your screen now. So not intimidating in terms of the size, and it does have those on-trend door handles. So these will pop away when the car is driving, but they do pop out and they have a nice action to them when you are getting in and out of the car. Now, let's have a look from this angle, see what you think. There's maybe one thing that I'm just not so sure about. It's those weird sort of bits that come down out of the back of the taillights. I don't really get that, but you might think it looks cool. And also, it's still got the old Chinese number plate finisher, which doesn't really look as finished as it could. Now, directly from the rear, yeah, nice design lines there. Let's take a look in the boot. And we do have an electric tailgate. So let's push the button underneath there and see what kind of space we are working with here. Yep, you can see for yourself. It's pretty good in terms of the amount of cargo area available. 424 litres to the cargo cover, more than 500 to the ceiling, and there are some practicality elements in the back here which you might like. Obviously you do get a cargo cover, so that's nice to see. There's a little push-out shopping bag hook there, which is good. Some cargo tie-down points in the back. Another one of those bag hooks on the side, LED light, 12-volt port, and importantly, underneath the boot floor, you will also find a space saver spare wheel, which I know is a bit of a bonus for plenty of people out there. Would be even better if it was a full size, but it's not, so too bad. Just some little attention to detail things that I think could be better. You know, this exposed stuff where you can see bonding glue, which just isn't as nicely finished as it could be. But hey, how often do you actually look at those parts of the car? But there's one other thing that maybe could be a little bit better in terms of this closing the boot element. Now listen to this. Yeah, so it's got a bit of a rattle because of that attachment thing on the back. I guess it's better than it looking unfinished, even though it does still kind of look unfinished. Let's have a look here and see what we've got. So, as I mentioned, all grades come with this 10.25-inch driver info screen. It has a decent amount of usability and adjustability to the screen. You've got a nice big, proudly showing digital speedo there, and you've got your speed sign recognition on that side there, as you can see, and it will beep a little bit at you, but it's not too annoying. Those little flashy lights there are your driver monitoring camera lights, so if you turn off the camera, well, it won't look at you, but it is looking at you otherwise. And then you've got this very impressive 13.2-inch portrait style touchscreen media system. So it has plenty of great features on board, and it's similar to lots of the other touchscreens out there these days because most of it is run through the screen. It's one of those software derived vehicles. So you do have heaps and heaps of technology integrated into this screen. If you want to go into the vehicle stuff, you can go in and adjust things there. So if you want to adjust the sound, or if you want to adjust some elements of the interior or your driver assistance stuff, you can do that through the screen. I haven't had to muck around too much with that stuff in this car, which is great. You can even adjust things like the opening height for the tailgate, which is cool. Now, there's also down here, if we go back to the home screen and then home again, you can scroll across there. You can just have that blank screen there. And if you want this home menu, then you can use that one there. There's built-in sat nav. If you want to use that, you're more than welcome to, and it's a pretty good system, I have to say, but I tend to just use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. My phone is connected, but it's just forgotten it since I started up this morning, so let's see if it connects up quickly and easily. Yep, just like that. So it's pretty quick, in fact, when you're getting in and out of this car to connect and reconnect, which is really, really promising because lots of cars these days tend to just get it wrong and forget that you had a phone. So I like this screen. I like the way that it's designed. I like the usability of it. And look, you will still have to learn a lot of elements of this screen. So down below here, for instance, you've got your climate control bar. So if you want to adjust the fan speed, you have to do it through the screen if you want to do it that way. So that's something you want to keep in mind. Your seat controls are in there too. So if you want to adjust your heated seats, you have to do that through the screen. There's no buttons for it. And I mean, that's the big thing with these new cars, with the screens that, well, they have everything on them. There's no buttons, no dials, and that just will be the thing you need to get used to. But I have to say, this is simpler than some of the other vehicles that I've been driving recently. And actually, I've come to terms with it really quickly. Maybe it's through familiarity with other systems, but I think this one is actually a pretty good system more generally. Now, in this high grade, you're getting this wireless phone charger there, which is good. There's a secondary pad there, but it doesn't have a charger on it, which is maybe a bit confusing. Here you'll find decent sized cup holders with those little releasey bits, so you will be able to fit smaller coffees in there as well. You can put your key in there if you want to, and there's a couple of dials and controls here. So you've got your drive mode controller there. You can turn off some things about the AC there if you want to as well. Hazard lights are there in case you ever need them. And this gear selector, well, it looks very similar to some of the tank models out there. So it could be, yeah, I mean, a little bit weird to get used to, but you will get used to it. Your park button's there. You just shift up and down to go into reverse or drive. Oh, and speaking of controls, there are some things I want to call out. This piano black finish on the controls here, not great. I've got the headlights on, but let me see if they illuminate better. There you go. But they're not great, still fingerprints, and it just takes a little bit of getting used to these controls. You will get used to them, and thankfully you've got the blinkers on the right, and your lights on the right, and your wipers on the left, so that's nice as well. Now let's have a look at some of the other finishes in this interior. Yes, you've got this rubberized sort of finish that kind of reminds me of the tread of a bike tire or something like that. And down here, well, that reminds me of piano keys. You tell me what you think. It doesn't necessarily feel like it's luxurious materials, but it's good enough, I think, and it does have some sort of keyish elements to it with this high polish finish that runs over the vents and across the dash. I think it looks really good personally, but one thing I don't love about it is that you've got a grab handle shaped thing here, but it doesn't actually have a grab handle. And what's weird about that is on that side you do. So that's because the controls on the driver's side, as you'll see, well, there's all your window and mirror controls are there, so you don't have that grab handle. And when you go to sit in the car and reach in, you have to grab that one instead. Or if your window's down, I guess you could grab it there. But yeah, it's just a weird thing that took me a little bit of time to get used to. And above, we've got some illuminated vanity mirrors, and annoyingly though, no auto dimming rear vision mirror, even on this high grade version. And as you can see, it sort of does have a small aperture to look through that back window. So no digital camera mirror either, another consideration, I guess. Controls up here, well, you've got your lights. They are nice and bright, which is good. And let's have a look down here. So apart from that, having the extra grab handle, you've got big door pockets. You've got a decent sized glove box, and it has a slow release open, which is kind of classy. And when it comes to extra storage, there's more. See, down here, between this section underneath the gear selector and down below, there's a massive storage area. And there's also a little hook here, which you can use for your handbag or shopping bag. Yep, USB ports down there too, if you want to use those instead of wireless. And the fake leather trim, well, it's definitely fake leather, but it feels pretty good, I have to say. And like lots of the Korean models, you've got these easy adjust controls here. So if you want to adjust the seat back or move the seat forward so you can allow someone in the back a bit more space, then you can do that. So if your kiddo is in there kicking the seat, well, you can just get it out of reach for them, and you'll still have plenty of space back there. Now we'll get back into the rear of this car in a sec, but I just want to call out again some of these finishes. There's this neoprene style finish, reminds me a bit of a Land Rover Defender in some ways. So does this. I know I said it's a bit like a bike tire, but yeah, it does remind me of Defender finishes, and maybe that's the whole point, that you feel like you're getting something a bit Land Rover-y for a lot less money. Now, there's also a big center console area here with a covered area with cooling too. So you can actually make in there colder if you've got snacks and treats for the road trip. Also like that you've got this ambient light strip in the center here, and over here you'll find your park brake, your boot opener if you want to open it remotely, and you've also got a little storage tray down there too. All right, let's check out the back seat space and see what it's like. Okay, so this seat is set for my driving position, 182 centimeters, 6 foot tall, and you can see I've got plenty of space here. Lots and lots of knee room, plenty of foot room, and I feel like I'm sitting down quite low in this car. Plenty of headroom too. So if you've got big teenagers, I think this could be a really, really good choice because it is super spacious back here. You've also got grab handles up high. There's little lights in the edges as well. And there are some good elements to this backseat experience in terms of the storage. So you've got multi-pocket pockets in the back here, and that's on both seats. You've got decent sized bottle holders as well. The same sort of finishes in the back, and you do have ambient lights in the back as well. They're not showing up right now, but there's a strip that runs along there, just like the front strip line. And you've also got a flip down armrest with some cup holders. You've got the ISOFIX points that you would expect and 3 top tethers too. But there's one thing that really annoys me about the back seat here. You do have directional air vent, just the one. So maybe it's living up to the single child mindset, but yeah, that is something that doesn't agree with me, because if you do have 2 people in the back and both are feeling hot or cold, there might be fights. Now, there's also USB ports down there, 1A and 1C, and a little storage tray, and a small transmission tunnel intrusion. But I think, honestly, you could fit 3 adults across the back here, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. So, yeah, back seat, yeah, again, a Chinese SUV, they really just understand space, comfort, and usability for the most part. At launch, the Jaecoo J7 is just a petrol-powered option. So there's a 1.6 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine with 137 kilowatts and 275 newton meters of torque. That is class competitive, pretty punchy, and if those numbers sound familiar, it's because it's the same powertrain as is used in the Chery Jaecoo 7 Pro. And like that model, it also comes with a dual-clutch automatic transmission. But despite its off-roady looks and intentions with those Cooper tyres, it is front-wheel drive only at launch. And there are some considerations you need to keep in mind with this model. So you'll see the tare weight on your screen now, and I'll also put up there the gross vehicle mass. That means that you have a payload of only around 400 kilograms. So don't go overloading it, and don't go thinking you can tow with it either, because it doesn't have any claimed towing capacity. This vehicle is not rated to tow a thing. But there are other versions of this car coming soon, including a plug-in hybrid. It's called the Super Hybrid System, or SHS, and it will offer about 90 Ks of EV driving from the battery pack alone, and impressive fuel consumption beyond that number. Can't wait to test it and do a full range test to see whether it's capable of doing that 90K claim. So make sure you subscribe and ring the bell, and you'll be notified when I do that review. I can't wait. It should be a good one. Over the past few days, I've done hundreds of Ks in this car, and let me tell you, I'm largely very impressed with the drive experience. It's certainly not perfect, and it's certainly not the most engaging or involving small SUV that you could buy, but what it is impressive for the type of vehicle that it is, and also impressive in the way that it doesn't give you the shits when it comes to the safety spec. So it does have all that stuff. It's got a driver monitoring camera. There's also the speed sign monitoring system, which will tell you what speed it thinks it is, and it can be either quiet or not quiet, depending on what you prefer, and you can turn them all off if you don't like them at all. You just have to do that every single time you drive the car, just like lots of other new cars out there. But in this instance, they thankfully, just as a default measure, aren't frustrating. And I really do think that's part of the reason that I've enjoyed this car more than some others that have come before it. It's still not perfect in terms of the high-speed adaptive cruise control stuff, so it still leaves a really big gap, and it can be a little bit laggy to respond. And also, there's still the lane keeping system that you might want to switch off at high speeds, but I've actually found it to be not too interruptive to the drive experience more generally, and so I've left everything on for basically all the time I've been driving this car, and that is a big thumbs up in my mind, because in lots of other new cars from China, I wouldn't be able to do that and not, well, go crazy, essentially. This is yeah, pretty good in that regard. And it's pretty good in lots of other regards as well. What I do like about it is the ride comfort. Sure, it still has a little bit of a sort of pillowy feel to it at times, and it can clang down over sharp bumps, but honestly, it's pretty agreeable, pretty comfortable on mixed surfaces that I've been driving on. Urban, highway, I'm driving in the city right now, and I've found it to be, yeah, very comfortable in most situations in terms of the suspension. It's no corner carving masterclass, it's not a hot SUV, so don't go expecting it to thrill you when it comes to cornering, but it handles itself pretty well in the bendy stuff. And also, I will say that I do think that, well, the steering is mostly quite good, apart from a bit of a strange weighting to it at times, particularly at higher speeds. It feels a bit oddly weighted. And also, the steering wheel feels too big, in my opinion. It just feels like it should be a little bit smaller to represent the smallness of this vehicle. But I guess the big thing here is the engine and dual clutch automatic transmission. It does take just a little bit of getting used to because, well, it has a bit of lag to contend with that you need to be mindful of when you're in intersection situations, roundabouts, stop-start traffic. It just takes a bit of learning and a bit of understanding of this powertrain, because if you haven't driven a downsized turbo engine and dual clutch automatic transmission combination before, it can be, yeah, a little tedious in some situations. And also when this stop-start system kicks in, it can be really, really slow to react. And as you can see, all that torque going through the front tires at times does mean that you do get a bit of the old tire squeal at the front axle. But I don't think it's the worst example of this powertrain tech I've sampled in my life, but it's not the best either. And it's going to be fine, I think, for a lot of people. It's just, you know, you got to get used to the way the car drives. It does drive a little bit differently to some others. And I guess the biggest thing for me as a criticism, apart from maybe the mirrors, because they are a bit strangely large and hard to see past when you're in traffic and looking out for pedestrians and so forth, and they're a bit sort of weird in terms of the side mirrors seem like they don't adjust to the right angle, and this mirror up here, maybe, well, it's blocked out by those headrests in the back, and the mirror itself maybe isn't as good as it could be. But also, I'll say that the brake pedal feel is not as good as it could be. So in stop-start traffic, it can be really hard to judge how much brake you need. It's a little bit inconsistent in the way that it reacts when you do put your foot down on the brake pedal. But I mean, I don't think it's a bad car, and I don't think it's bad to drive. In fact, I've been really impressed with it more generally in terms of the livability factor. So if you are considering a small SUV, it might be one to have a look at, that's for sure. On your screen now, you'll see the official combined cycle fuel consumption figure for the petrol models in this Jaecoo J7 lineup. Yep, 7 litres per 100 Ks. That's not fantastic for a turbocharged SUV of this size, but maybe it is realistic. Some of the other turbo SUVs that you might consider have pretty low numbers. This one, yeah, maybe it's a bit more on the what you might actually achieve side of things. So if you're wondering what I've achieved across a mix of driving, urban, highway, freeway, the same sort of stuff you might do, you'll see it on your screen now, and yeah, not too far off that claimed number. You need to keep in mind with this car though that it does require 95 RON premium unleaded petrol, which means it's going to be more expensive to fill up when you go to the servo. And the fuel tank capacity is on your screen now, so that should mean a reasonable amount of driving range, but not like a hypermiler. And hey, if you are looking for a car that can do long distance between fills, if you are also in the mind that you should use EV as part of your driving, well, make sure you stay tuned for my drive review of the plug-in hybrid version of this car, which promises to be a pretty good option. If it's like this, but with good EV driving range and good efficiency, hey, it could be the best one of the bunch. But like I said, subscribe and hit the bell and you'll be notified when that review goes live. At the time I'm filming this, the Jaecoo J7 has not been tested by ANCAP or Euro NCAP, but it does have the full host of active safety technology stuff. Thankfully, most of it is not annoying, which is excellent in my mind. The things that it has as standard include autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection. There's also adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assist. There's a traffic jam assist feature as well, so it'll stop, start and steer for you in some situations. And it's also got emergency lane keeping. Thankfully, it's not too pushy. There's also rear cross traffic alert and auto braking for that rear cross traffic system. So if you're reversing out of your driveway and there's a car coming that the car thinks you can't see, the car you're driving thinks you can't see, then it will jam on the brakes for you to stop you from running into the path of oncoming traffic. There's a driver monitoring camera, and it is actually pretty good because it's silent. I love that about it. And it's also got a speed sign recognition system too, which does make a little bit of noise, but thankfully it's not that frustrating to live with. So lots and lots of tech and spec featured in this car, and it's got 8 airbags as well. You've got dual front, front side, driver's knee, front center airbag, and curtain coverage as well. At the time I'm filming this, Jaecoo hasn't disclosed the ownership aspects of this model range. So there's no word on warranty and roadside assistance and cap price servicing just yet. But stay tuned. In my next review of the Jaecoo model lineup, I will be able to tell you exactly what is on offer. You know what? I think this is one of the most agreeable new Chinese models that I've driven. It is mostly very, very enjoyable in terms of living with this vehicle. And also, I like the design, I like the interior, I like the space. There's a whole lot to like about the Jaecoo J7. Would you choose one though? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments section below if there's anything else that you'd like to know about the Jaecoo J7. And as I said, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell, and I'll bring you more details on this model and this brand as we move forward. So thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, and I'll see ya when I see ya.